On this episode, we dive into the always evolving Sukhumvit Soi 11.
So, if you want to hear about what makes Soi 11 special and why it's never finished being finished, you'll love this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who really misses my regular rice porridge guy on the way to work, but he got cleaned out when they cleaned up the streets, so now I am stuck being at work hungry every morning.
Ouch, that hurts.
Yeah.
And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 19 years ago, fell in love with paying twice as much to enter Thai parks and museums as Thai people, and I never left.
You're a sucker for punishment.
There you go. We want to say a quick thank you to one of our patrons, Joseph Lapre, who supports us at the show shoutout level. Stick around after we're done talking about the Sukhumvit Soi 1 neighborhood to hear why Joseph might actually be a Russian gangster. And before we start, a huge thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. For more information on how you can become a patron, just head to the support page on BangkokPodcast.com. And of course, one of the cool things our patrons get is an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we talk about current events in Thailand and whatever else comes into our minds. We just finished recording this week's bonus show and we chatted about the old topic, the perennial issue of double pricing and how we have now quadruple pricing in Thailand. You're going to have to listen to find out. We also discuss a recent report that said Bangkok was actually not a very safe city. And we discussed whether or not we think that's accurate or just a result of some sketchy statistics.
Yeah, what do they say? Lies, damn lies, and statistics? Is that what they say?
They do say that, whoever they are.
Well, as a giant, white, scary-looking bald man, I can say that I feel pretty safe in Bangkok.
But I don't feel safe around you, though.
Well, that's pretty subjective. All right, well, before we jump into it, we want to mention a big thanks to our buddy Jeff, who brought a giant bottle of maple syrup all the way from America. It's actually Canadian maple syrup, but he lives in America. And he brought it all the way for us. And because I already have some maple syrup and I don't eat pancakes too often, I passed it on to Ed. And Ed is, how have you had it yet? Is it delicious?
Wow. Jeff, all I got to say is I really appreciate it. I'm a huge maple syrup guy, and as we have talked about, maple syrup in Thailand is ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
So if you want to get on my good side, just bring me some genuine maple syrup. I love it. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, that was great, man. And you'll be helping to contribute to Ed's future nickname, Old Diabetes Ed. So
it could happen. It might happen.
What might happen?
Old maple syrup blood Ed.
Yeah, no doubt. Mosquitoes love me because my blood is maple syrup.
That's right.
All right, well, on this episode, we are diving back into our neighborhood focus series with Sukhumvit Soi 11. Most everyone listening has probably been on Soi 11 at least a few times, and it's long been a hub for eating, drinking, and nightlife in Bangkok that also has a surprising amount of nice, quiet condo apartment buildings nearby. But it seems that every few years, Soi 11 undergoes a complete makeover with swanky new clubs or hip restaurants splashing down. Some thrive, some die, some thrive and then die. So it's a Soi that's like constantly reinventing itself. And it's a really interesting place to hang out. I spent my second night in Bangkok going up and down Soi 11. So I hold it, it has a special place in my heart. But we went down there the other night to give ourselves a refresher, and we came away pretty surprised with what we saw.
Yeah, like you, Soi 11 is near and dear to my heart because I lived on Soi 1 for the first 5 years that I lived in Thailand. I lived on Soi 1, which
right.
It sounds quite far away from Soi 11, but it's actually not far at all because Soi 1 is close to Soi 3. And then there's a cut through from Soi 3 that allows you to curve around and end up on Soi 11. Right. I spent many of my first 5 years, the nights on Soy 11. But as you pointed out, it has changed a lot since then. And I like the way you described it, because Soy 11 is one of those soys that just seems to always be changing.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like it's not only just changing like what's there, but it's sort of like the whole vibe around it changes. Like
I think for maybe the first 10 to 12 years I was here, I thought of Soy 11 as being kind of swanky, and it was because of Q-Bar and Bed Supperclub that were essentially kind of high-end clubs. And so
right.
long-term expats will probably know Soy 11 for Q-Bar and Bed. But if you've only been here for 5 years or less, or maybe even 7 years or less, you might not know what we're talking about. But I think there have been some replacements. Obviously, there are nightclubs there, Levels. There are other nightclubs on Soy 11. So Soy 11, it's got a strange identity. There are a lot of hotels on 11, so you get a lot of tourists, but it's not one of those areas that's exclusively tourists. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people live around there. It's actually it's a surprisingly residential area, considering how much music and food and partying is going on.
That's right. So we thought about making this show on all of Lower Sukhumvit, so maybe like Soy 1 to all the way up to Asok, but it's such a concentrated area that we decided really just to make this show about Soy 11 and the immediately nearby soys like 13 and 9. So we're really only talking about the Soy 11 area because it's so concentrated. As Greg pointed out, like a lot of expats live in that area. So it's not, there's tons of tourists there, but there's also tons of expats.
So we went out the other night and we walked from one end to the other all the way down and back again. And I got to say, I came away really surprised because it's been a couple of years, I'll be honest with you. It's been a couple of years since I have been down there more than for a few minutes at a time. And I thought actually right now, Soy 11 was kind of dead.
Yes.
But in 3 years, it's going to be a completely different story because there is a ton of stuff happening down there in terms of construction.
Yeah. Greg and I talked about this as we were walking down the Soy, and both of us were a little bit unaware of exactly how much construction is going on. There's a ton.
Yeah.
We were joking that, Soy 11 is basically just under renovation. It's like I had heard, I think about 6 months ago, I read an article, and it was vaguely, I feel like it was either called, or in the article they said there's a Soy 11 renaissance, and we'll talk about there's still some great clubs there, especially Hemingway's relocated there. So there is some good stuff on Soy 11 right now that you can go to. But Greg and I were joking as we were walking down the street that right now, there's not really a Soy 11 renaissance. It's more like a Soy 11 renovation.
Right.
I feel like a third to a half of the Soy is closed.
Yeah, I would say that. I'd say about a third of the Soy is just either roped off or like got fences around it or buildings that are blacked out. So it's really crazy. And I think the biggest part of that is we have to, tip our hats to the memory of Cheap Charlie's, which is like sort of this legendary bar that used to be on Soy 11 since like 1980 or something like that. And
right.
it was kind of a landmark of that area. And that's actually where I spent my second night in Bangkok, was at Cheap Charlie's on Soy 11. But eventually that land just became too valuable. And the guy who owned it sold it, made a cha-ching ton of money. And now there's going to be a massive condo development there. But that's going to be huge because not only did it wipe out Cheap Charlie's, but it also wiped out the Mexican restaurant back there and the Spanish restaurant. They had a fish and chips restaurant, an Indian restaurant, and a really nice Thai restaurant, and a huge guest house. And all that has been torn down, and there's now going to be a massive development in there. And that was the biggest one that I saw.
Yeah, this is an old story for Lower Sukhumvit. So for me, Lower Sukhumvit is anything from Asok down, to Soy 1. And ever since I've been here, it's all of Lower Sukhumvit has just been constantly changing, right, where invariably the property gets sold off and you get major developments, and sometimes it's a mall, sometimes it's a condo. But I think this is just a story that repeats, where it's just the value of that land is so high that people will come in with big money, and the old owners just can't hold out.
Yeah.
The bottom line is you are right in between two SkyTrain stations, so you're right in between Plunchit and Nana. On top of that, you've got Bummergrad Hospital, which is an international level hospital. And on top of that, you have the tollway entrance, which comes out right kind of near the Plunchit BTS stop. And so it's just prime real estate. Like Lower Sukhumvit is just prime land.
Yeah, this is not really related to what we're talking about today, but I'm wondering how long Nana Plaza can hold out.
Well, I got a feeling that they're making plenty of money.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, does a red light district compete with 1,000 condos at $1 billion baht each? Like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, maybe the reason those condos sell is that they are located close to high-so destinations as well as a red light district. Maybe that's why those condos sell so well.
Maybe, yeah.
Basically, Lower Sukhumvit has, I don't know, would you agree with this, Craig? I think Lower Sukhumvit has a kind of controversial reputation because you do have Nana and this red light area there. And so there's a fair amount of like shadiness to Lower Sukhumvit, but at the same time, it's always had great restaurants, like great clubs, great live music. It's a fascinating part of Bangkok. I feel like Lower Sukhumvit is this area of concentrated Bangkok.
Yeah, I would agree. The good parts have bad parts, and the bad parts have good parts, and you can get kind of anything you want.
And Soi 11 is a good example of that. It's like great restaurants, hotels, nightclubs, live music. It doesn't. Soi 11 itself doesn't really have a red light district, but it's got like massage parlors, like shady subsoys with like tons of massage parlors, and and you have tons of tourists around there, but a lot of expats live in the area, but it's not all foreigners. It's like there's a lot of Thai people around. It's not like all foreigner neighborhood. There's just tons of Thai people around too. So it's very international.
Well, let me ask you this: would you move to Soi 11 now?
Yeah, I think I would. I got to admit, like I said, I lived on Soi 1 for 5 years. So I grew up in Thailand. My Thai infancy was on Lower Sukhumvit. It definitely has its minuses. I mean, it's busy, it's crowded, it's chaotic, but I love it. There's insanely good food. Just on Soi 11 alone, you've got Italian restaurants, Japanese restaurants, Thai restaurants, but you're also just very close to Little Arabia. You're very close to African restaurants on Soi 3. To be honest, I'm not that well traveled around the world, so I can't compete with some of my friends who've been to every major city in the world. But I don't know, man. I feel like Lower Sukhumvit, it's got to be up there in the world for international
ambiance.
Yeah, what do you think? I think it's very international.
No, I would agree 100%. But you mentioned something earlier about the negatives, and we're going to talk a lot about the positives too. But for me, there's one big negative about Soi 11, and that is that it's ground zero for dickhead taxi drivers that refuse to take you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the tourist thing. I mean, and again, you know me, I could talk forever about taxis.
Yeah.
But, any area where there's a lot of tourists, tourists can be easily fooled by taxi drivers. So any area where there's tourists means that if you're an expat and you want to get a taxi, they're more likely to want to negotiate with you or go off meter. So yeah, in general, I would say Soi 11, like other areas where there's a lot of tourists, you're going to get a lot of taxi drivers who do not want to go on the meter, which sucks.
Right.
So you're right.
It's super frustrating. And I've been on Soi 11 some nights where I've had to walk like 15 minutes out of my way just to get a taxi that'll say yes,
Yeah, I've been there. I would agree with that. I mean, to be honest, right now, the biggest problem with Soi 11 is just all the construction, like we said. But I guess that means that I don't know if it'll take 3 years. Hopefully, a lot of the construction is done in 6 months or a year. But why don't we talk about some of the places that we like? So I mentioned before Hemingway's. So I do think right now, just from our walk, of all of Soi 11, I would hang out at Hemingway's the most of all the places we saw.
Yeah. I like Hemingway's a lot, and a little bit of history here. Of course, the Hemingways used to be located in that beautiful old colonial like heritage building down on Soi 14, which is a bit further down the street. But they moved it and sort of did a close approximation of the original place. And they built it new to look old. And we stopped there and had a pint the other night. And it's really nice. It's really nice. And it's not the same as the old place, but what place is when they rebuild it. But I liked it. And right next door to that is the Australian, which is also a really good pub. It's been there for a number of years, probably getting close to 8 years now. And that's a good place to go to.
Yeah, I like the Australian. Even though there's a lot of construction now, it is such a long Soi that there's still a lot of stuff you can do. So there's plenty of restaurants along the Soi. There's a Daniel Thaiger, which a lot of people consider one of the best burgers in Thailand. Kind of in a way, I think of Daniel Thaiger as kind of the original craft burger in Thailand.
Yeah, I'm on that boat gang. Yeah, I'm on that side. I agree with you. Whatever it is, when the first time I had Daniel Thaiger, I was like, just a hamburger. How good can it be? Damn, those burgers are good. So
yeah. So there's an actual Daniel Thaiger restaurant. So we don't want to act like we're down on 11. It's just that I think Greg and I were both unaware of exactly how much of it is under construction right now.
Yeah, it's just a huge amounts. But like it said, it's a long Soi. So when you walk down, you walk past the Hemingways and then the Australian. And of course, I have to mention Limoncello, which has been there forever, like way before I got here. And that's a really nice Italian restaurant, which is in sort of a little sub-Soi off to the left on Soi 11. And I've eaten there a bunch of times, and it's always been really, really good. It's kind of like a little sheltered restaurant. Great Italian food there. And you go down a little bit further, and then there's another one that's worth noting. I think it's called Oscar or Oscars.
That's right.
And they've also got really good hamburgers there, becoming kind of a hamburger aficionado. Yeah, and you keep walking, and then actually it's funny because you get to the end of Soi 11, and you can either turn right or turn left. The Soi 11 proper goes left and then turns right again, and you're still on Soi 11.
Yeah, so that left turn at the end of Soi 11, there's a couple very interesting places. So first, you've got Apotheca, and I'm a big fan of Apotheca. As listeners will know, I like to go listen to live music, and Apotheca has great live music. So it's basically a live music pub or bar. They've got great blues bands. They've got some jazz bands that play there. So it's just right around the corner. So if you want good live music around Soi 11, I recommend Apotheca. But unfortunately, I think next to Apotheca, the old Firehouse pub, I think that is has closed down. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it closed down a couple of months ago, which is too bad because they were known for their really, really good burgers. And I do remember that was the first, we started my bachelor party there, and then it got progressively hazier from there on in.
I think your bachelor party is something that Firehouse Pub and Restaurant was known for.
Maybe that's why it closed down.
Eventually it caught up to them.
Yeah, exactly. Certainly caught up with me. That sounds way bad than it meant. What I was talking about is the hangover I had the next day, and that's all. Okay. I don't want to make it sound like I was some deviant or something. Anyway,
you were.
Off topic.
I was there. But anyway.
Is. But one thing that's cool is right across the street, of course, you have the Insanity nightclub, which I've heard the name a lot, but I'm way too old to be partying at those places anymore. I hear it's cool. I wouldn't know. But then right next door, where Q Bar used to be, is now a Villa supermarket.
Yeah, that's right.
We walked in there, and I thought it was pretty good, pretty well stocked. A lot of farang food. No vegan ice cream, unfortunately for you, but but they had a lot of good stuff, which I think is a pretty good location for a villa because there's actually a ton of residential properties just around this area. And actually, did you know that if you keep going all the way past, there's a really good restaurant on top of a condo building called Above 11, which is right by Villa. But if you keep going on Soi 11 all the way to the end, there's actually a bridge that goes over the Samseb Canal.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, you can connect to Petpuri Road, which in my opinion is the worst road in Bangkok, but still, it's pretty neat that you can get a shortcut.
Yeah, all
there.
those, those Sois go back really far. It's really, the distance between Sukhumvit and Petpuri is deceptively long.
So so I used to have a friend that lived in one of the buildings sort of back past Q Bar and Villa They're sort of towards the end of Soi 11. And this goes as well for where Soi 11 goes down. What we've done here is we've talked about going down to Soi 11 and turning left. But if you also go down to the end of Soi 11 and turn right, what I'm about to say applies there as well. But in this area, there's actually a lot of really cool, old, nice condos and apartment buildings that are probably dating back to the 80s and maybe late 80s and 90s. And back then, a lot of the condos built in Bangkok were huge. A lot of the newer condos are much smaller. But if you get one of these older buildings, it's very quiet back there, surprisingly.
Yes.
And some of these older buildings are really, really large and affordable rent-wise.
That's right. Yeah, the deeper you go in those sois, the quieter it gets, and you're surprisingly close to fairly chaotic parts of Bangkok. And this is actually one of the things that I like about Bangkok is that there are these little niches, like these little. They're not suburbs, but it's almost like right in the middle of the city, you've got a small little oasis of trees and peace. And then like a 3-minute walk, you're in the middle of like restaurants and nightclubs and chaos and taxis.
Exactly.
It's fascinating. So going down 11 and around 11 and 13, and you keep heading towards Petpuri, all of a sudden you're in like these secluded sois.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's sort of like the Bangka Chao effect or the Prapadang effect, where you're like in the middle of this quiet area, in the middle of this chaotic city.
That's right. To me, that's one of the defining characteristics of Bangkok, is that there are these, that there are these just small, weird, quiet areas that are very close to the center of the city.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
To go back to your question, like, would I live on Soi 11? I probably would not want to be on Soi 11 proper, but being deeper in the Soi and getting that peace and quiet, but being a 5-minute walk from bars and Apateka music scene and killer restaurants, that I would like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And once we, when we were out during our walk, I mean, after we had a beer and we did some walking and some shopping, you took off, but I continued to walk around a little bit. And I did some walking around back in the Soi 13 and Soi 15. There's also some really nice hotels back there, like really boutique-y European style looking hotels.
Right.
Which seems pretty nice too.
I mean, there's a couple big hotels like Ambassador. There's some big famous, just around 11 and 13, that whole area, 11, 13, 15, tons of hotels.
And also too, at the end of Soi 15, there's the Nana Chat Pier where you can get the Sansab canal boat if that's your thing, which also makes it quite convenient too. So
cool.
Like you can get out several different ways. Like you said, there's the highway there, there's like tollway, there's the SkyTrain, and there's the boat.
Lower Sukhumvit is just an intense version of Bangkok.
Ooh, that's a good way to put it. An intense version of Bangkok.
It's concentrated Bangkok, Lower Sukhumvit.
Yeah. So I liked it, man. I came away impressed with Soi 11, but it wasn't what I thought it would be based on how I remembered it, but it's also not what it's going to be. So I think, like we said, in 3 years, Soi 11 is going to be a totally different experience.
Yeah, I'd have to put it this way. I would say right now, Soi 11 is definitely not at its peak. It's being rebuilt. It's being reconstructed. It's being renovated. It's still worth a visit, especially if you're an expat and you've never checked it out. And if you're a tourist, staying around there is still a good idea. But it's just it's being remodeled right now. It's just not not at it's not in its full glory. But I hope it doesn't take 3 years to get there. I'm thinking in a year it might be ready.
A year, hey?
We'll see. I don't know.
Interesting. Well, I liked it. I'd like to head back down there again, maybe another 6 months and see what's going on. At the very least, we can have another pint, get some good food.
For sure.
And keep tabs on what's going on. All right, let's get into some love, loathe, or live with, where one of us surprises the other with a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we then discuss and decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept as just part of the crazy makeup of Bangkok. This week it's my turn. Ed, I'm going to say 2 words. Mooncakes.
Mooncakes. I got to be honest. I don't detest them the way I detest a lot of Thai desserts. So,
Really?
We've had this conversation before where a lot of like really traditional Thai desserts I just don't understand and I don't get. Mooncakes, I'm just a little bit more blasé about. Like I don't like them. I think they're kind of boring. I don't think there's anything special about them, but they're not weird in the same way that like other like Thai kanom are. Does that make sense?
Really? Because I loathe them.
Oh, you loathe them. Why do you loathe them?
Man, they're awful. They look cool. They look like they might be delicious, but I've never had one that isn't dry and crumbly and soggy. Like if you.
Oh, you're right. They're bland. Like I totally agree with you. They are bland.
Yeah, like save your money and chew on some cardboard. I don't get it. I don't get why they're so special and why they're gifted so often. And I know they come from China. They're a Chinese.
No, I agree. Okay, so I'm going to agree with you. I don't get why people think they're good or special, but they're not as weird. They're not as weird as like the gelatinous weird cubes in like liquid sugar. Like they're not, you know what I mean?
They're not as weird like conceptually as a dessert to foreigners as those other things are. But I just don't get the hype around them. I mean, you just see them all over the place, and they come in really beautiful gift boxes and expensive packaging.
Agreed.
I just don't get it, man. They're gross. Ugh.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm gonna go live with, but I'm with you in that I don't get their appeal. It's obviously very different from durian, but in a way it's the same because you hear that something is delicious or something is good or something is very popular, and then you try it and you're like, I don't get it. Like,
exactly.
So mooncakes, we're just gonna have to add that to the list of things that I don't get. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get. All right.
But I'm gonna go live with. I'm not gonna go loathe. I'm gonna go live with.
All right, I'm a solid loathe.
All right. So as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, we'd like to say thank you to Joseph Lapre for lending us his support at the show shoutout level. And Greg, what did you find out about Joseph?
Well, Joseph is one of these guys. We always write them an email and say, hey, thanks for the support. Tell us a little bit about yourself so we can talk about you on the air. And sometimes they just say, nothing, make something up. So that's what Joseph said, which forced me to go to Google and start looking up stuff about Joseph Lapre. So the first thing I did was I typed in Google and I typed, is Joseph, and let Google fill it in for me. Wow. And the first two were pretty boring, but the fifth one was, is Joseph God? So
Whoa.
That was pretty interesting. So I'm not sure if our patron is God or not, but I think maybe he's just a regular guy. But then I started to wonder, maybe I'm not typing it right. Maybe the L in his last name, Lapre, is actually an I.
Whoa.
So I Googled Iapre, and it turns out Iapre.com is a Russian website about real estate or something like that. It's actually a really beautiful looking website with some gorgeous drone video of Moscow.
Wow.
And of course, as I'm always drawn to the most ridiculous conspiracies, I think Joseph, which is a Russian name, Stalin and all that stuff.
Sure.
I think Joseph is actually a Russian gangster hiding out in Thailand. I don't think his name is Joseph Lapre. I think his name is Joseph Iapre.
Wow.
I think he's here like hiding from the law or something like that.
All right. Well, as I've said before, I'm pretty neutral on our patrons. As long as you support us, I support you.
That's right. We don't care what country you're from, what your background is. Maybe you're a gangster. Maybe you're Tony Soprano. Maybe you're Joseph Iapre. I'm not sure. But either way, man, whether you're a Russian gangster or not, thank you for your support, brother. We appreciate it. And hopefully, if you're not a Russian gangster, you can come to Bangkok. We can settle this over a beer. If you are a Russian gangster, of course, then please just continue giving us money and don't contact us. But we're kind of scared with those things.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you for your support, man.
Okay, before we wrap up, I'd like to give a special thanks to all of our lovely patrons. As you know, we don't run ads or have sponsors, so we really, really do appreciate the support we get from our patrons. If you want to learn more, just head to bangkokpodcast.com/support. And if you want to get in touch with us, it's easy. Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We are very polite, and if you write, we will answer.
Yeah, you can also find each episode we do on YouTube, and you can follow us online where we post each episode and carry on conversations with you. You can also reach out to me on Twitter, where I am BKK Greg. So thank you for listening, everyone, and we'll see you back here next week.
Absolutely. See you next week. Okay, before we wrap up, I'd like to give a special thanks to all of our awesome patrons. As you know,
I don't know how to help with that, but I'm trying to learn.
You got some Chinese food on the way, man.
That was weird.
Is that Google?
I didn't even
Google?
say, I didn't say, I thought you had to say the word. I wonder what triggered that. That's really weird.